Hi Math 8 students, today we're taking a look at volume of irregular figures. Use the formulas for three-dimensional shapes to find the volume of the figures below. So in this first example, we have a cylinder and a cone put together. So we have to find each volume separately and then add them together. So let's start with the cylinder's volume. So for a cylinder, we use pi r squared h. So we have volume equals pi times the radius, which is half of the distance across, so that's 2 squared, times the height, which they tell us the entire height is 10. And since the cylinder is just part of that height, we have to do 10 minus 3, which is 7. Okay, so now we can do volume equals pi times 4 times 7. So volume equals 28 pi, and that would be centimeters cubed. And I'm actually going to leave it that way because there wasn't any directions for how to round. So for right now, let's just leave it in terms of pi. Then we do this cone that's at the top. So that's going to be volume equals 1/3 pi r squared h. So we can do 1/3 pi times the same radius, so that's 2 again, squared, times the height, which is just the 3. So that's volume equals 1/3 pi times 4 times 3. So that's volume equals, well, 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. So it's just 4 pi centimeters cubed. Now, that's the two separate volumes. So we want to put them together to find the total volume. So that's 28 pi plus 4 pi is 32 pi centimeters cubed for the total volume. Now, that's leaving it in terms of pi, giving an exact answer. I could multiply 32 times pi, and I get 100.53. So we could say that it's approximately 100.5, if we were rounding to the nearest tenth, centimeters cubed. All right, so it's not that hard. You're just going to make sure that you're paying attention to how the units are labeled and that you break it up if needed. All right, so let's take a look at another example. Number 2. Ooh, this has got some more shapes here that we have to deal with. So here, like in the last, we have a cone and a cylinder, but we also have a hemisphere. Remember, when you have a hemisphere, that's half the volume of a sphere. So let's go ahead and find the volume of each piece first. We'll start with the cone. So volume equals 1/3 pi times the radius squared. Well, we know the whole distance across is 6, so that would make sense that the radius is 3. And the height of just the cone looks like it should be just 5. Okay, so going across, we have volume equals 1/3 pi times 9 times 5. So volume equals 1/3 pi times 45. So volume equals, well, 1/3 of 45 is 15 pi. And we'll leave it that way for right now. That's also centimeters cubed. All right, so now we can go into the cylinder that's in the middle here. So we have volume equals pi r squared h again. So that's pi times 3 squared again for the radius. And then the height. Now, in this case, it's very tricky. We know this is 5, and we know that the diameter of the circle is 6. So that would make this radius be half of 6, or 3. All right, so 5 plus 3 is 8. 16 minus 8 is 8. So the height of the cylinder is 8 units. All right, so that's where it gets a little bit challenging. You got to make sure you pay attention to how it's labeled and break it apart to use the correct units. So now we can finish this up. Volume equals pi times 9 times 8. So volume equals 72 pi. And again, in centimeters cubed. All right, then last we do the hemisphere. And that hemisphere is volume equals 1/2 of 4/3 pi r cubed, which is going to be 3 cubed. So that's volume equals 1/2 of 4/3 pi times 3 cubed, which is 27. So that's volume equals 1/2 of 27 divided by 3 is 9 times 4 is 36 pi. And then half of that is 18 pi centimeters cubed. And then last, we want the whole volume, so we have to add them all together. So we've got 15 pi, 72 pi, and 18 pi. Well, 8 and 2 is 10 plus 5 more is 15. And then 7 plus 3 ones there is going to be 10. So it's 105 pi centimeters cubed if we're making this be in terms of pi and the exact volume. And we could then multiply 105 times pi and get 329.86. So if I wanted to round that to the nearest whole unit, we could say approximately 330 centimeters cubed. Always pay attention to your rounding in the directions of any word problem, especially on a test. All right, so hopefully you see how we're doing these. Take your time working through the remainder of the problems in the lesson, and I'll come around and check your work before you move on to your exit tickets and homework.